arrived at Killarney with Mike Briggs still firmly entrenched at the top of the championship. Opel kept an unbeaten Swartkops record with 2 wins for Briggs in rounds 9 and 10. The Toyota dealer team bounced back at Swartkops with good results for Mike White in the Minolta Toyota Camry and Anthony Taylor in the Castrol Camry. For Toyota, the Swartkop results provided a confidence booster. A test of character awaited the BMW Envirocar team following Sean van der Linde's huge accident at Swartkops. Van der Linde was out in a spare 94 car with teammate Dion Joubert in the 95 spec BMW. Swartkops also provided a boost for the Sassel Ford Mondeo team. Newcomer Steve Wyndham was again in the points with new 95 spec Cosworth engines available for Wyndham and Sarel van der Merwe. Both Rothmans Audis on Dunlop rubber were in the points at Swartkops. Killarney is also a circuit where drivers Terry Moss and Chris Aberdeen traditionally go well. The BP Nissan team was hoping for a return to form at Killarney for both Janil de Villiers and Nick de Waal. For the drivers, Killarney offered the opportunity to bounce back at their home circuit. Class B Championship leader Kersey Swanepoel suffered a rare defeat at Swartkops when he slid off the circuit in round 9. Adding to the Class B challengers was Leon Marie, also involved in a major Swartkops accident in the bank-thin Toyota Sprinter. Put on your helmets and fasten your seatbelts because it's time for the action-packed AA Fleetcare Super Touring Championship. 6 manufacturers and some of the best drivers in the world clash head-on in a formula which has taken motor racing by storm. The AA Fleetcare Super Touring Championship, Africa's most exciting racing formula. Opel Racing domination of the AA Fleetcare series this season is reflected by teammates Mike Briggs and Grant McCleary, sitting pretty at the top of the points table. Where Briggs is concerned, the engravers can virtually start inscribing his name on the championship trophy, but complacency is a danger.
My biggest concern is that both myself and the team might become complacent. We're at the halfway stage in the championship this weekend, and at the halfway stage last year I was leading the championship, and as you know, we didn't win that one, so yes, I'm terribly concerned about it. But I must say, the motivation is there on everybody's part. My team are right behind me. They work harder every time we come to a racetrack. They work harder, and I just really feel obliged to get out there and do my best.
The Fair Cape at its fairest. Marvellous weather greeted those teams who tested at Killarney during the week, with more sunshine for official qualifying. But there were storm clouds brewing following an accident involving German driver Sabine Reck in the Motorplan BMW in an open practice session. The popular German girl suffered leg and neck injuries, and Minolta Toyota Camry driver Mike White was fined R1,000 by clerk of the course Brian Hoskins for his part in the incident. After a protest from BMW, the fine was later increased to R5,000 by the stewards of the meeting.
The problem is, when I hit into the wall after Mike White touched me, my knee was damaged very badly. One bone hit the other bone, and so my knee is broken. They have to fix it in Cologne next week, and that means they want to put some screws in, and then it will take 8 weeks.
Killarney places a premium on a good grip position, and qualifying is a high adrenaline period for the drivers. The Sassel Ford Mondeo team had high hopes for newcomer Steve Wyndham, who learned his racing at the Cape Town track. Wyndham wasn't that happy.
It's a bit disappointing today. Look, the 2 Opels are pretty quick, but for third place there wasn't much in, I think 3/10. And unfortunately I had a bit of a problem with coming past the Class B BM going into Malmesbury, and that messed my lap up because you only get 1 chance really. Anyway, but the car feels very good, so I must just get a good start and I'm sure we'll get through. But it's going to be good racing. It's very, very close. I think there's less than a second separating 10 cars, so it's going to be exciting racing, that's for sure.
With 4-wheel drive, the Rothmans Audi Quattros are regarded as wet weather specialists. Terry Moss gave the Rothmans Audis a maiden win in the wets at AA Killarney, but the team has concentrated a great deal on tyre testing in recent months. Chris Aberdeen, now living in Cape Town, had no qualms about a dry or wet race.
We went very well in the dry. I think the grid is very close. Between myself and third position is, what, half a second, and we've done a lot of race distances in the dry, and we're really confident. I think we're going to be in with a podium finish either way, wet or dry.
Struggling to regain form, there were a few early problems for the BP Nissan team.
We struggled with the new front splitter. We had too much downforce in the front. We had very good downforce in the front, actually, and that made the back very light through the sweeps, the fast corners. We're starting to get that right now. Although it's not quite right, but we'll get it right, and I'm sure when that's 100%, we'll do well again.
Circumstances after his Swartkops accident forced Sean van der Linde to use one of the BMW Enviro Team 94 spec cars at Killarney. He was a little disconsolate, and life has not been easy this season for the BMW squad.
Globally, if you like, BMW is battling a little bit this early stages of this year. Obviously, they're working very hard. I think the front-wheel drives have a slight edge on us. That's shown by the Opels. But we're working very hard, and I think we're there or thereabouts. I mean, we're much closer than we were at the beginning of the year already to the leading cars.
Qualifying produced mixed fortunes for Toyota, with Anthony Taylor left stranded in a gravel trap after spinning off early in the session. A disappointed Taylor and teammate Mike White were slowly arriving at the optimum setup for the Toyota Camrys.
These cars are very temperamental, and you've got to set them up. They're all very adjustable, so you've got to get everything right on the day, and it takes a good team to do that. And with the help from Dave Cook from England, we're achieving that.
None of the other teams managed to break the 1:17 barrier during qualifying. Mike Briggs and Grant McCleary needed only a handful of laps to do the trick.
Well, qualifying is always a very difficult time. It's probably the most dangerous time. It's the time that racing drivers tend to take the biggest chances because it's so important to get a good lap in. And fortunately, we knew that we were pretty quick, if not the quickest. So once we saw what time the Toyota had put up, we knew what we had to shoot for. And Grant and I had a strategy. We went out together because that helps both drivers to really go for the best time, because you've got somebody to measure yourself against. And it worked perfectly for us.
A devastating performance from Opel Racing, with Mike Briggs in pole position with Grant McCleary alongside him. Mike White put the Minolta Toyota Camry on the second row and was joined by Janil de Villiers in the BP Nissan Sentra. Dion Joubert led the BMW Enviro car charge, with Nick de Waal in the second BP Nissan joining him on the third row. Next up was Steve Wyndham in the Sassel Ford Mondeo and Chris Aberdeen in the first of the Rotmans Audis. Veteran Cyril van der Merwe in the second Sassel Ford of reigning champion Sean van der Linde completed the top 10. Super Touring racing has taken the world by storm, and a visitor to Killarney for rounds 11 and 12 of the AA Fleetcare Series was Jonathan Ashman, president of the FIA Super Touring Commission.
Well, when I started out writing the regulations, the idea of the formula was to come up with technical regulations that could be used on the sort of cars we see every day around the world. Prior to that, you had to build a very special car to do touring car racing. But I wanted, as Mr. Eccleston calls them, in fact, colourful rental cars. I wanted the formula to be used in all sorts of countries, being able to use locally produced cars that would produce competitive close racing.
Round 11 of the AA Fleetcare Super Touring Championship, and the Cape weather has turned nasty. It's wet, windy and cold as the cars battle to get off the line, and one of the Rotmans Audis has come flying through the pack. Racecam action from the de Villiers Nissan, and drama in the first corner. The Audi is off and Briggs has taken to the dirt. So does de Villiers. Oh, and Mike White came flying past the de Villiers Nissan. There are cars all over the place as Anthony Taylor takes to the dirt in the Castrol Camry, and that is Chris Aberdeen in the Audi, who locked horns with Mike Briggs in the first corner. Aberdeen is underway again, but he will be fuming. Four-wheel drive came into play as the Rotmans Audi simply rocketed away from the start, and it looked as though Aberdeen might have been fractionally ahead of the Opel as they went into Holsworth. Out in front, Briggs leads McCleary through VW corner, and one of the BP Nissan Sentras looked to be in trouble with smoke pouring from the back of the car. It's wet and slippery out there. More race cam action as we get another look at the start from Steve Wyndham's Sassel Ford Mondeo. A BMW was leaning all over a Nissan, and there's plenty of bumping and boring going on. Now it's Wyndham who's holding his line with the Nissan. That is Nick de Waal alongside him. There was contact and the Nissan goes sideways as through comes Van der Linde BMW. De Waal is back on the circuit and Anthony Taylor is forced to run wide. The end of lap 1 and the race order is Briggs and McCleary out in front in the Opals. Third is Nick de Waal in the BP Nissan with Mike White's Minolta Camry on his tail. Next up are Anthony Taylor and Sean van der Linde's BMW, and there's still some smoke from the de Waal Nissan. It looks as though he might have some bodywork rubbing against a tyre, and that will be a legacy of the argy-bargy in the first corner. Anthony Taylor has teammate Mike White ahead of him as he gives a wave of acknowledgement to Van der Linde for politely moving over. The great weather over the last few days has disappeared and the circuit is very wet in parts. With some sections of the track drier than others, it's very easy to make mistakes, and there's definitely the threat of more rain as this race progresses. Briggs is still out in front with McCleary tucked in behind him. It's very slippery through the Sabat sweep, and Nick de Waal is now under heavy fire from Mike White in the Minolta Camry as they pour on the power down the back straight. White will fancy his chances of getting past de Waal at Stanek Corner and is alongside the BP Nissan. Well, Mike White has made it into third place, but it was touch and go for a second or two. The pair were leaning on each other, and the Camry very nearly got out of shape. Now de Waal has Anthony Taylor on his back bumper, and it surely can't be long before the Nissan runs into a tyre problem. And here's trouble for de Waal and Taylor. The Nissan has hit the wall on the pit straight, and the Castrol Camry has spun off the circuit. That's it for Taylor, but where is de Waal as the leaders complete lap 2? There's a big gap between Mike White in third place and Steve Wyndham in the Sassel Ford Mondeo, who slips through on the inside of Sean van der Linde. The reigning champion is back to fifth with teammate Dion Joubert right behind him. And there is the BP Nissan parked on the side of the circuit. Nick de Waal is out of the car and okay as marshals move in with fire extinguishers. An action replay, and from that angle you cannot see if there was any contact between the two cars. De Waal gave the pit wall a mighty thump and Taylor did the same on the other side of the track. Back to the action on the circuit, and Dion Joubert is closing in on his BMW Envirocar teammate Sean van der Linde. After his car was destroyed in that spectacular accident at Zwartkops late last month, van der Linde is out in a spare 94 spec Beamer and has moved over to let Joubert through. Joubert is now fifth behind race leader Mike Briggs, Grant McCleary, Mike White and Steve Wyndham. Are coming up to complete another lap, and championship leader Mike Briggs looks to be totally in control. Briggs has only been beaten twice in the 10 rounds of the AA Fleetcare Championship run so far and has a huge lead in the Drivers' Championship. At this stage, matters look good for Briggs, where another win is concerned, but Grant McCleary is starting to come under a little pressure from Mike White in the Minolta Toyota Camry. The Camrys were a thorn in opal flesh at Zwartkops, and it's happening again at Killarney. White is getting closer and closer, and Briggs will be relying on McCleary to keep the Camry at bay. A race situation that could turn into something really exciting is starting to develop. It looks as though we have someone else in trouble. That's one of the Rothmans Audis. It's Terry Moss, and the right rear tyre is all but destroyed. The Audis have four-wheel drive, but Moss won't get too far too quickly on three wheels. We have an interesting scenario developing between Grant McCleary in the Opel Vectra and Mike White's Minolta Toyota Camry, and here is another battle that's starting to look promising. Dion Joubert has closed right up on Steve Wyndham, and they're fighting over fourth and fifth. Both of them learnt their racing here at Killarney, and they know every centimetre of this circuit. The leaders are into Stanek Corner, and Wyndham is forced into taking a defensive line as Joubert starts to look for a way around the Sassel Ford Mondeo. Wyndham has made a big impression since he joined the Sassel Ford Mondeo team, but is going to have to keep his wits about him in this sort of situation. Sean van der Linde is gradually dropping back in the second BMW Envirocar, but Dion Joubert will be plotting and scheming to find a way around the Sassel Ford. Mike White is also going to have to do some forward planning if he's going to get past Grant McCleary in the Opel Vectra. What will be worrying White is that while he tries to find a way past McCleary, race leader Mike Briggs will have the opportunity to open up the gap. action from the rear-facing race cam in the McCleary Opal, and White looks to have dropped back a fraction. Briggs leads them through the Sabat sweep onto the back straight, and McCleary looks to have a little breathing space, but the Minolta Camry is very quick in a straight line. The Camry is inching closer to the Opal, but White isn't close enough to try any heroics at Stanek. And McCleary has a problem. The Opal suddenly darted about under braking, and it looks as though something is broken on the suspension. The left front wheel is wobbling about, and that is dreadful luck for Grant McCleary, and a stroke of fortune for Mike White, who is up into second place. Steve Wyndham and Dion Joubert have also picked up a place with the Sassel Ford, now third, and the BMW Enviro car fourth. This race has certainly produced its fair share of drama. Into the pits comes Grant McCleary, and his race looks to be over. Even if he gets going again, he'll be way down the field, and any prospect of a finish in the points is out of the window. A finish in the points in Class B looks very much on the cards, though, for Leon Marie in the Bankfin Toyota Sprinter. Marie has a comfortable lead over Duncan Voss in the Accord Nissan Sentra, with Hein Latergan running in third place in the Motorbild VW Jetta. Marie and Latergan were involved in a big start line accident at Swartkops last month, and it's taken a great deal of work to get the cars back into full racing trim. Marie is a former fighter pilot and is now an airline captain, and he damaged 2 vertebrae in the Swartkops accident, but at the moment he looks none the worse for wear. Voss and Latergan have some ground to make up on Maria's Class A cars, bear down on the slower Class B entries. And would you believe it, Leon Maria slowed to a crawl. The Bankfin Toyota has expired, and this is a tragedy for the Bankfin team as Duncan Voss shoots into the lead in Class B. Now back to the pits and a disconsolate Grant McCleary.
I don't actually know. I was just going down the back straight behind Michael, and it felt as if I got a puncture, you know, and the car started to weave, and it started to get out of control, so I just couldn't keep it in a straight line, so I just brought it into the pit. So something to do with the steering arms, but it's pretty disappointing.
Race drivers are sometimes given to understatement, but there is some consolation for McCleary with teammate Mike Briggs out in front at the halfway mark. Mike White is a distant second in the Minolta Camry, with Steve Wyndham third in the Sassel Ford and Dion Joubert fourth in the BMW Enviro car. Sean van der Linde is fifth in the second BMW, but Chris Aberdeen is on a charge through the field after his first corner disaster and is closing in on van der Linde. The big battle out on the circuit is still the intriguing tussle between Wyndham and Joubert. While they continue a personal duel, Mike Briggs is in total control of this race. It's going to need some silly mistakes or mechanical failures for Briggs to lose this one. Here come Wyndham and Joubert once again. This really has developed into an intriguing battle of wits between two very gifted drivers. Lap after lap, Wyndham is being forced to defend every corner as Joubert continues to look for a way around the Sassel Ford. The circuit is still very slippery, and with the pair locked together, there's been a fair bit of physical contact. Joubert gave Wyndham a little nudge there just to let him know he's still right on his tail. Once again, Wyndham is being forced into defensive lines. There's nothing illegal about that, but Joubert must be very frustrated at this stage. The Sabat sweep is still very wet, with the drivers on the brakes at the corner they would normally take flat out. Joubert is tucked right on Wyndham's exhaust as they hit the back straight, but the Sassel Ford just pulls away from the BMW. The Ford has the edge in straight line speed, but it's the tougher sections of the circuit and under braking that Joubert looks to be able to close the gap. Once again, Wyndham has taken a defensive line at Stanek, and Joubert won't get around him on the outside of the corner. For race leader Mike Briggs, it is turning into a Sunday afternoon drive. He's opened up a lead of around 6 seconds on Mike White, and the gap is remaining constant. There's also a constant gap between Steve Wyndham and Dion Joubert, but it's a gap that's measured in centimetres rather than seconds. Once again, Wyndham is making the Sassel Ford as wide as he can, and if he could reach under his helmet, Joubert would be pulling out his hair in frustration. There has been a change of lead in Class B. Hein Latergan in the Motorbild VW Jetta has moved ahead of Duncan Voss in the Accord BP Nissan Sentra. The Sentra's motor is sounding very rough as Voss is lapped by race leader Briggs. Behind Voss, Class B Championship leader Kurzi Swanepoel is third in the BMW 325. Swanepoel is struggling a little in the wet conditions, with Nico van Rensburg going along steadily enough in fourth place in the 318 model. Back to the pits, and we have another retirement with Janil de Villiers' BP Nissan being wheeled into the garage.
Oh, well, I had a good start, and I got in right behind Michael. And then when we went into the first corner, Michael lost it, and I lost it as well. And I went off to the inside of holes. And then I also went wide in Malmesbury then, but my clutch started slipping in the end. So that's why I had to come in, because we didn't want to damage the flywheel.
The BP Nissan team isn't having much luck just recently. Both cars are out of this race as Mike Briggs moves another lap closer to his 9th win of the season. That's Terry Moss tucked in behind the race leader, but the Rothmans Audi is 3 or 4 laps behind Briggs after a lengthy pit stop to replace the right rear tyre and repair bodywork damage. At this late stage in the race, it's doubtful that Briggs wants to get caught up in a little cameo performance with the Audi. It's a different story where Dion Joubert is concerned, though. He still has a view at the back end of the Wyndham Sassel Ford Mondeo, but race distance is starting to run out. Joubert must be getting a little desperate as the pair come up on the Class B back markers, and again, the BMW closes right up on the Ford under braking. The Wyndham-Joubert scrap has been a classic and has kept this race alive. Race leader Mike Briggs is still ahead of Terry Moss, and it might be wiser if Briggs held back a little and allowed Moss to get past. It's not going to affect Briggs too much because Mike White is still a long way behind in the Minolta Camry. Once again, Joubert is tucked in right behind the Sassel Ford as they hit the back straight, but it's the same old story of straight line speed, and Wyndham is pulling away. Corner is up ahead, and as has happened so often in this scrap, the BMW closes right up under braking. Wyndham takes the defensive line. Joubert can't do anything about it, but the Sassel Mondeo is showing a few battle scars and is now minus a rear bumper. This is the final lap, and still race leader Mike Briggs is ahead of Terry Moss. If you didn't know any better, you'd think this was the battle for the lead. It would be a pretty good one too if Moss, who is a very determined and aggressive character, wasn't a couple of laps in arrears. Now Briggs finally moves over to let the Audi through with half a lap to the flag. That's Mike White, still safe in second place. And Wyndham and Joubert are still at it, and it's now or never for Joubert. Here they come with the BMW Enviro car's nose still tucked under the rear bumper, or what is left of it, of the Sassel Ford. Wyndham is still defending every corner, but the big test is going to come at Static Corner at the end of the back straight. That's about the only place left where Joubert has a chance of getting past the Ford under braking. Terry Moss leads Mike Briggs down the back straight, but it's Briggs who's heading for a comfortable victory. It's been another commanding display by Briggs in the Opel Vectra, and his 9th win in 11 races underlines the superiority the combination have clamped over this year's AA Fleetcare Championship. And here come Wyndham and Joubert. They're locked together in Static Corner. There's contact between the two cars, and Wyndham's been pushed off the circuit in the final corner. Briggs takes the win, but what drama right at the death. And more drama with protests against Mike Briggs and Dion Joubert from Audi and Ford. Briggs and Joubert were each penalised 30 seconds by the stewards of the meeting for unsportsmanlike driving. And this gave the win to Mike White ahead of Chris Aberdeen and Steve Wyndham.
We're very happy. The Camry is coming right. It's going exceptionally well at the moment. We could have had a little bit more rain and we would have been a little bit better off because we had intermediates which were closer to wet settings, and but still, like Mike said, you had to keep it on the island. It was very slippery.
I also made the right decision for the 6, but the last 3 laps it only started to run on 3 cylinders, so I was just praying the guys wouldn't catch me. I was lucky,
There was a great deal of activity in the pits during rounds 11 and 12 of the AA Fleetcare series, with Harris technicians trying to get cars into race trim for the second race. With any number of incidents during the day to keep team managers on the hop, there was also some heated discussions between race and team officials. The weather really turned nasty for the second AA Fleetcare race. The rain came bucketing down, and with an icy wind, it was thoroughly unpleasant. More serious from the driver's point of view, the light was fading badly and conditions were going to be tricky to say the least. Who would don't want to be a race driver in these conditions, but the show goes on. The lights are green for round 12 of the AA Fleetcare Super Touring Car Championship. And Mike White got a flyer in the Minolta Camry, and Chris Aberdeen is stranded on the line in the Rothmans Audi. It's almost impossible to see who is who, but it looks as though it was Steve Wyndham in the Saddle 4 Mondeo who got into the first corner ahead of Mike White. The conditions make racing fraught with danger, and these drivers are going to earn their pay. And that is Sean van der Linde parking the BMW Enviro car on the side of the circuit, and BMW's cup of woe is overflowing, with Dion Joubert also out, and both BMWs retire before the first corner. Neither Nissan made it to the start, and with Aberdeen, Rothmans, Audi and both BMWs out of the race, the field has already been decimated. Steve Wyndham it is who leads Mike White with Briggs third. It's almost impossible to identify the cars on some parts of the circuit, but it looks as though Terry Moss in the second Rothmans Audi is up into fourth ahead of Cyril van der Merwe in the second Sassel Ford. Headlights burning in the gloom and bouncing off the spray make for an eerie sight. Conditions could not be worse, and it's a lot darker than it looks on your screen. The rain is still coming down, and with all the spray from the circuit, it's a mystery how the drivers can see where they're going. The circuit's like an ice rink, and this is really frightening. Steve Wyndham learned his racing here at Killarney and knows this circuit like the back of his hand. He leads a Super Touring event for the first time in his brief career with the Sassel Ford Mondeo team. Mike White is still second in the Minolta Toyota Camry, but he could run into a few problems for stealing a march on the rest of the field at the start. Mike Briggs is tucked in behind White, with Terry Moss fourth in conditions just made for the Rothmans Audi. Briggs is putting plenty of pressure on Mike White in the Minolta Camry, and Terry Moss is creeping closer and closer to the pair. Cyril van der Merwe is fifth ahead of Anthony Taylor in the Castrol Toyota Camry, and the way these drivers maintain this sort of pace in these conditions is unbelievable. Steve Wyndham leaves the field onto the back straight, and both Briggs and Moss have got past Mike White. In the spray, you can hardly see the Minolta Camry tucked in behind the Rothmans Audi. Wyndham is the only car running without lights, and he either can't reach or find the light switch, or he has an electrical problem. The verges of the circuit at Stanek Corner are virtually flooded, and these must be just about the worst conditions encountered in 3 years of Super Touring racing in South Africa. It's getting darker by the minute, but still Steve Wyndham hasn't switched on his lights. Championship leader Mike Briggs in the Opel Vectra and Terry Moss in the Rothmans Audi are slowly creeping up on the Sassel Ford. A mistake there from Moss as he runs a little wide at Hol's Hook, and Mike White is back into third place. Moss just misjudged his braking there, but it's so easy to do that in these conditions, where if you're tucked in behind someone, it's very difficult to see. Now Briggs closes right up on Wyndham under braking. The Opel Vectra made up 10 or 15 meters on the Sassel Ford on the brakes, and Wyndham is going to find it increasingly difficult to stay ahead of Briggs. Mike Briggs is piling on the pressure as they come into the Volkswagen corner. As was the case in his first race battle with Dion Joubert in the BMW, Wyndham is having to drive defensively. He managed to stave off Joubert before being punted off the circuit, but the Opel is through. Mike Briggs is back where he's been virtually all season, and that is leading AA Fleetcare Super Touring races. Terry Moss has also got past White again and is back in third place. Those headlights on the back straight should belong to Race and Super Touring Championship leader Mike Briggs in the Opel Vectra. Indeed they do, and now tucked into second place is Steve Wyndham in the Sassel Ford Mondeo. Terry Moss in the Rothmans Audi, which should be reveling in these conditions with four-wheel drive, is in third place, followed by Mike White in the Minolta Camry and Cyril van der Merwe in the second Sassel Ford Mondeo. Into the final stages of this race with Leon Marie leading Class B in the Bankfin Toyota Sprinter. Leon had rotten luck in round 11 when he had a handy lead in Class B only to run into a mechanical failure. He has another handy lead over Duncan Voss in the Accord Nissan Sentra with Hein Latergan in the Motorbild VW Jetta, and looks to be on his way to a maiden win. This is the last lap, with Mike Briggs coming into Stanek Corner for the last time, followed by Terry Moss, who is too far behind to be a serious threat to the Opel. It's been a masterful display in the wet by Briggs, and will make up for his disappointment of a 30-second penalty in round 11. The checkered flag is out for Mike Briggs and Terry Moss. Steve Wyndham is third in the Sassel Ford Mondeo, and as we expected, Mike White has been penalised for a jump start. A 30-second penalty drops him to fifth behind Cyril van der Merwe, with Class B winner Leon Marie in a fine sixth place overall.
The car was brilliant. You know, to dispel any rumours that our cars weren't good in the wet, I really thought I'd put in a good charge. And I quite love the wet. You know, it's quite ironic that the two Port Elizabeth boys, we're used to having drought down there, but when we get the wet, we really enjoy these conditions.
Don't miss rounds 13 and 14 of the action-packed AA Fleetcare Super Touring Championship at the East London Grand Prix circuit on Saturday the 10th of June. Be there or see highlights in the AA Racing Report, exclusively on NNTV Sport on Saturday the 17th of June. The AA Fleetcare Super Touring Championship, Africa's most exciting racing formula.